Okay,
last
yeah.
year. So,
Not,
yeah,
not
it
many
was super
people
nice.
come. But,
No, they
you know, it's, which is unfortunate.
You put your stuff in my chair,
I'm
Marcus.
so
My
sorry.
nameplate. There.
I just wanted to show
They
you
moved
what I
it.
have.
Where am I saw that at the earlier meeting. I just said, "Bro, I'm for you."
Oh.
And then I saw you
I
showed
don't
up with
think
it.
my
Yeah,
name
fix
is
that
And then
one as well.
Ashley did.
common,
So I forgot to
but
put it.
I've run into
I've got
other
'em in
Cheryl
home.
Nelsons here or there.
And Los
And-
Llanos.
Yeah, and
My
Can't
sister is
remember anyway.
Nelson.
That's
yeah,
it.
And my maiden name is
6 o'clock.
Nichols. And I
She was, yeah.
okay. My husband's
I
last
thought
name.
the story was
Martin
pretty
here,
funny, and then she kept
but-
texting me. Tell now to the wrong.
Good evening. Welcome to the October 5th meeting of the Nepenthe Homeowners Association. We have a relatively short formal agenda. And I would just like to remind folks, particularly if you haven't been to one of these meetings before, there will be plenty of opportunities to speak to the board. Actually, 3 very obvious opportunities. There are 2 homeowner forums. And then if you have a comment you'd like to make on an agenda item, that'll be an opportunity as well. I ask that you introduce yourself, use the microphone, be concise and courteous, and introduce yourself. Did I say that already? I think I did. Yeah. And be limited to 3 minutes. We need to keep them short. So please keep it to 3 minutes. I'll be kind of watching the clock. And if you start running over, I'll point at my watch. Okay. Everybody good? Okay. Let's begin. All right, we had an executive session this afternoon. Those executive sessions really deal with delinquencies where owners have not paid their dues or not paid their fines. We took some actions, and that was really the purpose and the subject of the meeting. We are now to agenda item 3, which is committee reports. Is Alan Waters here for the Architecture Committee?
I believe he's traveling, and I don't know that anybody else
Is
is
there
here.
anyone here from the Architecture Committee?
Let me just take a look.
Okay, well, we'll just move on. Finance Committee, Susan? Susan Timmer, are you on? I saw your,
Yes.
I
yes.
saw you.
So,
would you like to make a report on the Finance Committee meeting?
would you like me to just kind of talk over what we did, or because I don't really have anything to add over and above that, but I'm happy to kind of give a summary if you'd like.
Yeah, just a summary. Your notes are in the package, so give a summary.
All right. Well, we looked over the draft reserve budget. We had a few thoughts about making some changes to the budget. And I know that the board has been going over the budget also and identifying areas that need to be edited, which means that the reserve budget will be rerun, hopefully in our favor. We noticed that the paint and siding cycles were back down to 6 years, and we had changed them to 8, and those kinds of things make a big difference in the overall reserve budget, because it takes kind of money out of what we have to spend over the years. But until we see the new draft reserve budget, we really can't do too much. So I think we're in the process of looking over the reserve budget. I know you are, and then we'll see what happens from there. We looked at the draft operations budget and noted that there were 2 versions of this budget, one including flood insurance and one not including flood insurance. I know that the ILS is working on that and has a full report to go along with it. I think, you know, we had some discussion about this, talked about greater costs and to the homeowners association if some people don't buy flood insurance. But I know that that's also a discussion that you're having amongst the board members. So we kind of moved on from that, and you'll have much more information from ILS. With the water costs, as and everybody knows, we're going to be starting to pay for the cost of water in our individual units as part of our homeowners dues, but it's not really clear when that's going to begin. Betsy, thinking that she could talk the city into beginning to bill us in July, thought that she would just budget for 6 months next year of water costs. And what we recommended to the board was that instead of budgeting for an unknown number of months and really not knowing what's going to happen in terms of the dollars being taken off our bills and how much it's going to be, we recommended that you consider making a mid-year adjustment to the dues when the switch actually takes place. So we just figured that would reduce a lot of headaches in terms of getting reimbursements back to homeowners or and possibly having to make adjustments anyway. One other thing that was in the draft operations budget was a staffing increase. Betsy is proposing to hire a full-time handyman to take the place of a contract employee. And during this discussion, we had some concerns about adding more costs to the homeowners dues, but we identified some items that the handyman could take over if someone was there full time. And so I believe Betsy was going to try and kind of look a little bit more closely at the line items that you could take over and get that information to you so you could make a better judgment about the costs and benefits of hiring a handyman. We looked over the August financials, and that all looked fine. Betsy noted that there was an increase in cash in the operating funds due to an increase in interest payments on overdue assessments. So yay, that was probably a little bit unexpected, but nice. We did not have the reserve tracker, although we looked at the financials, which also contains that information, and looked at at how the reserve budget was conforming to our expenditures so far this year. And we are kind of at a point where we've spent out most of what we thought we were going to spend in landscaping, and there are a couple of other expenses that were running a little bit high. But I think, because the reserve budget is just a guideline for our expenditures, I don't think we're really that concerned about the level of expenses. And know that, with respect to landscaping, for sure, the grounds committee does a lot of due diligence in identifying what the really urgent kinds of projects are. So I guess we didn't really have any kind of information to pass on to you about that. We had a lot of people at the meeting. It was quite exciting. We were a little bit camera shy, but hopefully we did okay. And some homeowners asked questions and had opinions about the budget, and particularly the reserve budget. And I think, there's probably still a lot of I think maybe the reserve budget is just hard to understand. And I think people don't really get the idea that the contribution that we make each month to the reserve budget is not what we have to spend that, that year in reserves. And so I think, it just causes a lot of confusion. So it was great to hear the kinds of questions people had and comments. And I think, we'll take some of those things to heart. And when we try and do a little bit more education, hopefully in a homeowners forum on a budget. And that's it.
Thank you, Susan. Very complete report.
I have a quick comment. Just, I think the notes originated somewhere else, but this goes for all committees. Some of the homeowner comments weren't captured. I just want to make sure that in any of our committee meetings, if a homeowner comes that's not on the committee, that if they made relevant points that they're captured. So, because I don't always get a recording. And I just, sometimes I hear about things and other times I don't. So it'd be just helpful for me.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, time for Grounds Committee. Someone here from the Grounds Committee?
Christina is on the Zoom meeting.
I'm
Oh,
just unmuting myself. Can you hear me? I just unmuted myself.
Are you back? Are you back from your bike adventure?
I just got back last night, yes.
No wonder you look a little bleary.
So if you just scroll down on the agenda, Betsy, I mean, I guess everybody can see that the number of proposals that we have, quite a substantial number. This came about because of zone walks and homeowner requests. We also used a ranking system, which you will see on these proposals. And it's pretty much based on, firstly, structural, if there's any potential structural damage to either a house or to, in this instance, tennis courts. That's one of the reasons why we put that in. And it was also the other ranking system is structural damage, and also for water, low water use, low water plants, and for maintenance. So that was pretty much the reasons why we approved these particular, the Grounds Committee recommended these proposals to go to the board. And one of the last ones there is a tree remediation proposal that should have been done a few months back, but we finally caught up. So there is a substantial amount, but I just also want to mention that we tabled 2 proposals from the last meeting to October's meeting. So we've also got 2 further proposals, and more in upcoming, because as the board knows, the Grounds Committee's job is to look and find, issues in landscaping. So we have zone walks every week. So based on how you review these proposals, I think we might then, we can just look at it further if we want to have further proposals coming in for this year, because I'm hearing there are concerns about the reserve allocations and that we've overspent on grounds, which we have done every year in any case. So I'm just going to wait to see how the board acts on these proposals. That's
Okay. Thank you, Christina. ILS, we have a report regarding flood insurance from the ILS committee. Nancy or Jerry, who's going to make this?
And, okay. And use the-
Microphone. And introduce yourself.
I'm Jerry Dunn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
With the IOS committee. Nancy's actually the chairman, but our meeting was all about insurance, and I worked in insurance for 46 years, so I know a little bit about it. Anyway, so
a little closer.
can you hear? Okay.
Like
This thing's
hold it
really-
right up your-
Hold it there? Okay, good. So I do know a little bit about the insurance. The everything we talk about the renewals, our fire insurance renewed October 1st. The increase, our coverage increased like about 9%, but the cost went up 24%. That was actually, it was going to go up more than that. It's going to go up to about $150,000. But the board did vote on two changes, like increasing the deductible from $10,000 to $25,000 and getting rid of a coverage called EPLI. That saved us about $14,000. So the net cost was about $136,000, which is a 24% increase from last year. The other item we spent a lot of time on was the flood insurance. And we made a recommendation to the board, but the board has not seen that, I don't believe yet. Have they?
They have it. It was part of their packet.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Okay, good. And I know you haven't had time to really digest it, but we're very emphatic. Everybody but one person agreed on not considering flood insurance as an association, but do recommending it on an individual basis. And the reason why was the litigation potential involved by recommending this to everybody. Can I just make one little demonstration to you? I'm just going to pick somebody out right here randomly.
Jerry, microphone.
You can carry it with you if you want.
They can hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
So I have anybody want to volunteer for this? It's real quick, a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, okay, you get to be the lucky one. All right. Oh, no, that's, okay.
Jerry,
Okay.
Jerry, this
No.
is your report.
I'm
Let
sorry.
people speak during the homeowners forum. I'm so I know people will,
Okay, I just want to try to give you an example. of
people will
something.
take the advantage here.
Okay. I just want to give you an example of something.
Yes.
Okay. You've got, huh?
Demonstrate it.
Okay, just one quick question.
All right.
Okay, I don't know your name, but let me ask you a question. You just suffered a major loss, like we had like in Florida, you lost your entire house, right? You lost all your contents. Your losses were about $600,000. Okay. You have insurance for $250,000 for the building and $100,000 for the contents. Okay. You got about a $300,000 loss. That's not paid by the insurance. Now, did you think you had insurance, flood insurance? Did you think you had flood? Did you have flood? Do you think you had enough flood insurance for your building and your contents? Oh, all right. That's very good. That's very good. I don't know if anybody else has done this. That's very, very good. But we've got less than 1% of our group here. Out of 509 people, we got less than 1% here, about 0.5%, right? So those are people who are informed, okay, about this. You could have got more coverage. You could have gotten replacement cost coverage probably instead of ACV, which takes depreciation into consideration. But you thought, no, you didn't, obviously, because you got something else. But somebody else here would have thought, oh, I have coverage. Okay. So then they're going to come back to the board and they're going to say, well, did you know that there was more coverage available? So you could have gotten $600,000 worth of coverage and better coverage for less money. Did you know that? I can't say no because you've been informed. Okay. Now I'll make it real quick. So, and they say, they're going to ask you what makes you an expert? How did you know how much coverage you needed? Obviously you didn't buy enough coverage. You say, hey, but we bought $300,000 worth of coverage. Yeah, but she thought she had coverage for everything. Who's going to pay for that? The association is going to pay for it, the board. And you're not going to have coverage for that under your D&O because decisions like this should be made by an insurance agent with this respective person, not you, because you don't have a license. You're making an insurance decision for somebody without a license. So the D&O insurance is not going to pay you. Okay. I just want to let you know. Okay. Anyway, that's it.
I have a
Yeah.
comment. I mean, I think it's a really interesting topic and I'm not married to one idea of, of course, I would like to pay $47 less a month. But of course I care about what everyone else thinks. And I would like another director to go along with me to hold a special meeting. I think that's like a 5-day notice. And that we send out a survey link and we give the opportunity for all the homeowners to talk about what they think, because we have a budget coming up and this may or may not be something that is included in our budget.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm going to vote yes or no, but I think it's important to hear what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, you can still get coverage.
Let me just address that.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have carried flood insurance since at least the year 2000 and perhaps longer. Making the change that you're suggesting is significant, not a change that we would make lightly. We definitely have flood risk here. Ricardo, you can back me up at that because I know you will. And I know Nancy, your chair, is talking about having a flood forum after the first of the year. I think we should do that, but we need input. There are other issues, as you and I have talked about, where you have multiple units in one building and one person buys insurance and the other one doesn't. Regardless of the amount of coverage, when you have the flood insurance, you have coverage. So we talked about this in executive session today. We're not changing it this time. We are open to discussing it.
Okay. I just want you to know.
All right, thank you. Good report, Jerry. That was very good. Okay, outreach. Marcy?
There's only, sorry, Marcy Best Outreach Committee. There's only one change in our reported minutes, and that is the date of Halloween. It is now on the 30th, not the 29th. And so that's the only issue from the notes. We gave everyone a handout. If you don't have it, you're sitting on it. And it is what our activities are for the rest of 2022. And so we're gearing up for the holidays. And just from the beginning, here we have a homeowners forum on this Sunday, October 9th from 3 to 5. We're encouraging everyone to come to that so they get a chance to ask board members, committee members, what are they doing? What are their goals? Just general information to share with the homeowners, and I hope we get a decent crowd. So, and then we start into the fun stuff. October 22nd, we are going to put candy in bags. And first of all, we need candy. So we're asking folks to donate some candy, and we have a container in the lobby there. You can throw a bag of candy in. It needs to be wrapped candy, not loose. And, you know, like all of us, we buy Halloween candy and we have to taste it to just make sure it's okay. So cut the corner off, take your couple pieces out, seal it back up and donate it. That's my health tip for the day. And Halloween is turning out to be a really huge event. It's October 30th. We're going to have trunk and treat. We're having hay rides. We have face painting, and we'll have other activities for their kids. And so we encourage you to bring your grandkids, your kids, your neighbors, whoever, dressed in the spirit of Halloween. That would be good. And then we move into Veterans Day and the holiday party and the New Year's Eve party. And we'll go into those later, but that's information so you can put these things on your calendar. Okay.
Thank you, Marcy. Great, great report.
Okay. And yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. And Hallie is, I don't know where she's been hiding, but she did just this wonderful job of creating packages for the new homeowners. And so
Thank you.
she's got stuff to share.
I do.
Hallie,
I'm
Hallie,
Hallie Henley.
Hallie,
And
please introduce yourself and get
How does
right
I
up to the
talk?
mic.
Really not necessary. I'm Hallie Henley. I'm on the outreach committee, and I'm more of the outreach end of the spectrum than the social end of the spectrum, which really works for me. So we have decided that as a committee that we would like to do more to outreach to the new people who live in the Penn thing. So we've done a couple things. The first is hold on here. Made a postcard
Hallie, microphone, please.
card that we will bring take to the new people. Now, for instance, today Normal gave me 2 months worth of names of new residents. We have 10, 5 in each of the last 2 months. Renters and owners, it doesn't make any difference. They're all Nepenthe residents. We will take them a postcard, maybe slip it in their mailbox or hand it to them. So I've brought lots of those to hand out today so you can see. One of the things that we did was, you may be familiar with what used to be called the 33 things you can't do if you live in Nepenthe, or some horrible document. And we have flipped it to make it positive and retitled it Great Things to Know About Nepenthe. And on this postcard is a QR code, which most of you hopefully are familiar with how to do with your phone and your camera. And you can go to the QR code and it will take you to that document. So we'll have these postcards in the lobby. Are you taking a picture of me? Oh, you're gonna do it.
Open it up,
Okay.
maybe.
It depends on your Wi-Fi. You might have to give it
Oh,
permission.
Yeah, that's.
Give it
true.
permission.
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
It won't come up and great things to know about Nepenthe. That's awesome.
So there's the document. So like Sunday, we'll have the QR code, and then new owners, new residents will have that then. Then we will go back to these people and give them a welcome packet, which has some of the things that are on, will you pass them out to the
Oh,
board
I
for me, please?
will,
Those
yeah.
are for you guys, for the board. Which will have some of the things that are on the website's welcome packet, but we do not need to print the internet. So it just has some of the highlight things. Betsy and I worked together on this. She updated the welcome packet on the website to include some of the new things and the new forms. And then this we will take and hopefully knock on the door of a new resident and introduce ourselves and welcome them and give them this booklet. So we've done that. And I want to say thank you to Betsy for buying the spine machine that put those together, because it's really fun. And to Normal for all the photocopying she did. I really appreciate that. She was a big help. Then the other document is the infamous, I guess that's a good word for it, the Nepenthe A to Z, which comes into existence and then seems to disappear and is not on the website because it's so outdated. And Carol Duke has nicely volunteered to work on updating that. So hopefully we'll get that too, to be part of it. That would not be part of this booklet because we're not going to print the internet. So anyway, that's what we're doing from the outreach section.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Hallie. You must be the Energizer buddy. And I owe you a welcome letter. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. 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 Okay. Thank you, Hallie. Thank you very much. What a committee. Wow.
Oh, they're busy.
Okay. Betsy, you have reports under item Roman 4?
I do, and the board has had these reports for the last few days. So if you have some questions for me, directors, this is a great time to ask them. Let's see if they're what I want to highlight. I have provided that second draft of the budget per our conversation on the 28th. You had an executive session on the 28th. And so that budget is enclosed here. Yes, the October 1 was the renewal date for the hazard insurance. And so that has taken place. The deductible is been raised from 10,000 per occurrence to $25,000 per occurrence. And even with that, as Jerry Dunn pointed out, you're looking at a large increase over last year's. And you know what? This is not right. It was like $110,000 last year. I think that's the difference. I put in the difference amount. And then, you know, just based on the calculations that have been provided to us in the actuarial tables from Russo, we are looking at a bill of about $377,000 for flood insurance. And we will be getting some more information from the Russo group. So, but that's on the deck. It's coming. And the reserve tracker needs some work from our controller. And so I put together this very, very simple table, and I'd like to add it to the newsletter, but I'd like some feedback from you if you think this will add some value. And I just took the very large categories and lumped them together: siding, fencing, painting, roofing, physical components of the clubhouses, plus the pools and tennis courts. That's one category. Pole lights and all electrical, underground, which is our utilities and our plumbing, paving and concrete, which is asphalt and concrete. And then lastly, anything to do with landscape. These are the allocations. In other words, they were allocated to be spent this year. This is what has been spent and or committed, perhaps committed by board action, but not invoiced yet. So, you know, we have, I mean, out of the total, if you were to add up this 2022 allocation, it adds up to about 2.2 million. And our commitments and spending is at $1.9 million so far. And I'm definitely, you know, if you're okay with this going in the newsletter, I'm definitely including this little disclaimer. This is not an accounting report. It is just my doing math on the back of a scratch piece of paper, but the allocations will stay the same. And then these columns would update.
Are
each
you
month.
asking us to give you a decision at this moment?
You can, whenever you'd like.
Yeah, I think, you know, honestly, I'd like to look at this more closely. I think something in the newsletter is a good idea.
Yeah,
We got to make sure people understand the limitations of a report like this.
absolutely.
Only comment I'd say is I think the siding, fencing and painting, the allocation was for 2 phases or and it's or
No.
something that seems like the spent. I thought that we were more negative there, but maybe I'm wrong.
No. But again, you know, that's my point. This is not an accounting report, so it's more.
Yeah, you know, we need to look at this more closely, make sure we get it right.
Yeah. You know, here's the thing I would say is the newsletter does, oh, thank you, Susan. The newsletter does include some financial information, but it's mostly directly from the income statement. And so the income statement, as far as reserves are, only shows how much of your dues were contributed into the reserve fund. And so some of the feedback I've heard from homeowners is that they would like to understand what's being spent from the reserves also. So anyway, that we don't have to do it.
Is-
in this, but
Is this something that could be done on a quarterly basis rather than a monthly?
It could be done on whatever basis the 5 of you decide. So,
I like the monthly, but you know, my numbers are pretty close on the landscaping more or less.
yeah, it's
so,
not going to be a to the penny report.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I think we need to make sure people understand what the disclaimers, the limitations of this. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm personally not prepared to tell you to go ahead and take that right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, I think you've all had a chance to review what we discussed at the executive session about certain contracts. This is what we're looking at to date as a increase in the assessment from 547 to 575. But this budget isn't ready for adoption yet. That would be at next month's open session. Okay. And let's see, what else is in our little packet? I think I just have the master calendar. Oh, and these are the flood actuarial tables that were provided by Russo. And so this is a little interesting. You know, we have some test buildings and coverages, and it is showing for the $250,000 for the building and $100,000 for the contents. The highest premium would be a $640 annual premium, and some will be less, as you can see, based on their address.
You know, what amazes me is why are the premiums different?
Yeah, it's supposed to be geography based, but how different can we?
Well, you look at some of the addresses and in one case there, the university one is cheaper than one of the ones in Adelphi. Go figure.
Yes, but when you look at that flood map that you gave us, it really
Well, that's the inundation.
yeah, that inundation kind of comes from a different angle than
Well,
what
and
I would
you
have
know, the one
thought.
at Adelphi is not nearly as deep in water as the one on University. So I don't understand.
That's insurance talk.
Betsy's talking about the county publishes an inundation map. I'm sure, Ricardo, you've seen that. And, you know, we're looking at 6 to 12 feet of water. Okay, let's go ahead.
All right, and then there's just the work order report. So I think that's it for me unless there are any more questions from the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Incidentally, Ricardo, I'm glad to see you're well. I understand you had a health issue. It's good to see you here. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, all right. All right. So we've come to the homeowners forum. Quite a few folks here. Can I have a show of hands of who wants to speak? Don't be shy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how about online, Betsy?
Who would like to speak online? Maybe you could put your little hand up or just speak up to let me know if you want to address the board. I don't see any little hands showing up.
Well, we can come back to that in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Who wants to start? Margaret? Remember the 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Can't hear.
Here, I'm so sorry.
Hi, is this my, this mic's so much better. So what the HOA is trying to plan for in this, what the flood insurance is something that's catastrophic. We cannot plan for that unless you are God. What happened in Florida, they cannot plan for that. And this is what you can't spend our money on something that may never happen. And if something that catastrophic does happen, FEMA will come in and you will still get money. You do not have to have insurance for that. And so we're asking to maybe talk about just doing it on your own if you possibly can. And I think that would save us all probably a lot more money. And the other thing I want to talk about is the landscaping. We need people on our landscaping committee that are gardeners. We do not do new planting in the middle of summer. Everything, about 50% of what they have planted in July and August will die. It's already starting to die. The guys are already out redoing sod. We need to have people who understand that in the fall, about this time is when you do new planting, and you do not do new planting before that because it will not have time to root and grow. We're going to have to replace at least 50% of what they've already spent. So let's get people who actually understand what they're doing. That would be hugely helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Who would like to be next? Nancy, did you want to speak?
For our conversation before the meeting, I understand, I don't know if Jerry agrees with me, but I understand where the board is coming from on making a rash decision like that. I agree with the lady over there is saying, and I'm thinking that we should not have our insurance form until February, until we are very, very well prepared for it. And I hope I would get more advertising about it, because I think I'd like to get as many homeowners here as possible. That's the problem. They don't all come. And so they don't hear about it. And we will have we'll have the person from Russo Insurance here also when we have that form and explain it. And then you could, and I totally understand you don't want to be making a rash decision. I get that, but we're concerned about some other things and we have to get it out more.
Would the committee also consider having a representative of the City of Sacramento floodplain manager? The city has a floodplain manager who might be able to give people more information on our risk.
I don't think that we have a problem with that. That'd be
Yeah,
fine.
Okay. I've spoken to Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency about this and asked them if they would come talk. He said the guy from the city actually would be better. So I can put you in contact with them.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, very good. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Anybody else?
Ricardo, did you check out those shoes?
Excuse my appearance. I just got out of the pool, so I'm smelling a little chlorinated. So I'm going to speak slowly because when I was out of country, returned on Wednesday, my third day out of country, I had a little minor stroke, but I'm doing okay. So that's good. That's minor as compared to major. So that's good. So I joined the ILS committee so I could help them on flood insurance issues. The playing field is very dynamic right now. FEMA changed their insurance mathematical engine from what they call risk rating 1.0 to risk rating 2.0. It's supposed to mimic the private insurance, how private insurance companies rate catastrophic events like floods and earthquakes and things of that nature. So what I'm seeing, and I've talked to someone from AAA that gave me a different number than Christina from Russo provided in the tables. So I'm a little bit confused. I have documentation that says if we raise the deductible from 2,000 to 10,000, we should see a 40% discount. That's not showing up in Christina's numbers. I'm not blaming her at all because people are getting different numbers. Somebody earlier talked about that the current policy doesn't cover their second floor. That is not correct. I spent 13 years as kind of the chief engineer under a contract to FEMA working on the NFIP. Well,
Please,
okay.
Margaret, you're out of
Anyways,
out of order.
the NFIP covers your structure and your contents, whether it's 1 floor, 2 floors, or 3 floors. So I'll just leave it at that. So I look forward to the forum. I can also find out who one of my colleagues is the former city's floodplain manager. She's now with the state. I can find out who the current person is, and we can continue to hopefully get the right numbers and learn about the menu of various variables that we can select to the max of 250 structure, 100,000 contents, and we can choose various deductibles, which should reflect a better or a different rate. The higher deductible, the lower rate you should get. The private sector nationwide is getting into the flood insurance business. I'm not exactly sure what the insurance term is, but FEMA's concern, and it's being passed on through Congress, that they want the private insurance to cover the same things that the federal insurance covers, so people don't have less of a policy. And one last thing, I worked in New Orleans for 6.5 years after Katrina, and we insured all our buildings related to the organization I was working with, and we maximized our NFIP, our FEMA flood insurance, and then we bought supplemental private flood insurance to cover the difference in the value that the board of directors thought was appropriate to cover. So if my property on Dunbarton is worth 600,000 and I so choose to insure the full value, I could buy 250 from FEMA, which was always in the past was the best deal, and I could purchase 350 from another company like Lloyd's of London. So a lot to talk about in the meeting in February or whenever it occurs, and I'm
Thank you,
happy
Rick.
to help out. Thank you.
You know, and Ricardo, let me just add to that, Pete Gelfi from
Yes,
Safeco. I talked to him last week. Did you know that the Corps has withdrawn the certification of our levy? FEMA paperwork hasn't caught up yet?
The core certification only lasts for 10 years. And so once that 10 years has expired, you can hire the Corps to recertify your levy, but they will make it very, very difficult.
They're not going to do it till the erosion control work is done.
Right.
Yeah.
So probably a private sector company will be certifying those levies on behalf of the city and the county along the American River and the Sacramento River. So
Okay.
levee work is always ongoing in an urban area. So
Okay. Thank you.
happy to help.
All right, thank you. Who else? Peter?
Thank you, Betsy. I'm Peter Pelkofer. I have a very short story, less than 3 minutes. After the meeting of the Finance Committee the other night, a number of homeowners were standing outside having a conversation about the budget. And I was speaking to a lady who said to me, she lamented the fact that the dues kept going up and she was on a fixed income. I went home that night and thought about that fact and wondered if there was a possibility that we could come up with a budget that would not increase the dues. A budget that would adequately fund Nepenthe, but still not increase the dues. So I decided I would give it a try. I took the draft budget that we had been given, the one without the flood insurance in it, and I got a few of my friends together and we sat down for a few hours and worked over a budget. When we finished, we took a look at it. We felt that it adequately funded Nepenthe. And would you believe we could meet the fact that the dues did not increase? In fact, when we actually added it up, we found that our budget that we put together had actually decreased the dues to $510 a month. I have that budget right here as we've done it. I have 6 copies, one for Betsy and one for each of you. And I'd like you all to review it and seriously consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. We will. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter.
That way, you can really, I have a few additional copies. So if there's somebody here that would like to.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Is there someone else in the room? Bonnie?
Hi, I'm Bonnie Jacobson on Swarthmore. My thought about the budget is when my expenses go up, my first thought is, where do I need to cut back? And what I don't hear, however, I haven't attended the Finance Committee, is where we're cutting back. So I would like the board to explain that to homeowners if there is some way that we're cutting back on expenses, because I'm not aware of them. And I know at some point we talked about having a homeowner forum to talk about the budget. And I would love to have that so that we could have a little more dialogue, or the homeowners would have a way to, would find a way to give more input about our ideas on ways that we think you could cut back.
Thank you, Bonnie. Yes.
I decided to say something after all, but I have a little memo for you guys.
Please
which-
introduce
Oh,
yourself.
sorry, Lynn Goldsmith. I'm on Swarthmore also. The end of, I'm a neighbor of yours.
You are.
Okay,
It's
anyway.
not that I don't recognize you.
Anyway, surprisingly, I brought a copy of my flood insurance from last year. Do you know it does say lower floor only? So I want to give somebody a copy of this. Maybe you can make a copy so you can kind of check and see what have I done wrong, or what is going on with that policy. It's right here, right here. Well, I want her to check in. Oh, it's only content. Oh, that's what confuses us. Okay. Okay. So anyway, quickly, I'm also concerned about people on fixed incomes. I have a question about analyzing our costs. I would very much like to encourage this HOA not to plant one more blade of grass. In case anybody's wondering, we are in a drought. I meant to bring a really good article about that, but I didn't, so I'll drop it off to Betsy later. And it's not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end next year. So anyway, but anyway, that's the most. The other questions are about updating the website.
Tell that to the guy from UCLA who's predicting megastorms. Yeah, did you see that?
But that doesn't solve our. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room? Yes, sir. Please use the microphone, Peter.
Prior to the last board meeting, I sent a letter to the board requesting a board meeting that would be on the budget, giving homeowners an opportunity to express their concerns, issues, and so on. I've heard nothing about it. Is the board going to hold a meeting of that nature?
I think if you recall when Susan Timmer was speaking, she mentioned that, and the finance committee is planning that.
Yes, the finance committee is planning
was-
to do
that was in
something.
Susan's report.
Finance committee?
No. An open meeting to talk about the budget,
A homeowner
a
meeting.
homeowners forum. That's correct. You're welcome. Okay, anyone else in the room?
Oh, Ricardo.
Since Peter got a second chance. Oh, this is a simple one. I swim a lot when I'm in town and I hope the outdoor shower gets repaired. I'm not sure what the status of that is.
It's being repaired. The question is where to put it. Okay, do we have folks online that would like to speak? And we're looking at Dawn like all the time. Why is that? Dawn, there you go. Okay. All right.
I can take my picture off.
No,
Oh,
no.
No, that's
don't-
all right.
Okay, I'm going to bring the agenda. We do have some homeowner correspondence.
There was no one online that wanted to speak? Okay, all right. Okay, Betsy, please continue with the agenda.
All righty, we have a.
Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, correspondence and then consent calendars next. All right.
Right. So you have in your packet this letter from homeowner Carol Lowe. And she wanted the board to know that as the work on her home is completed, if you wanted to share the outstanding job that has been done here. As the first and guinea pig home to be done, the neighbors have been visiting on a regular basis, seemingly quite concerned. And so it's a very nice letter. I might even put it in the newsletter.
Yeah, we met with Paul Reeves, our construction manager, during the executive session today. And he had not been aware of that letter and was glad to hear it.
Oh, no, I
Did
had
Paul know
sent,
about it?
I sent it to
Oh, you
him
did? Okay.
and to
All right.
Bill
Okay.
Schuman
All right.
and to, yeah, everybody.
So that work is proceeding. Okay. All right, now we've come to the consent calendar.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments from the board members before we take this up as an item? All right, any objections to approving this? All right, without objection, the consent calendar is approved.
Okay. Okay. we'll go to
Okay,
unfinished.
item Roman numeral 8. Improved security at 1425 and 1443 University. Betsy, could you introduce us, please?
This has been on the agenda for a few months. It has taken some time to get a proposal for it, but we do have one from Critical Path Reconstruction, the same people who are doing the phase 1 carpentry repairs. And basically what this would do would be to put a small wrought iron fence at the front of University between 1425 University and the fence that separates us from the apartments. And it would also put another one at the rear at 1443 University, essentially looking like there's no access anymore to cut through from the levee to University. And, you know, based on all of the discussion we've had, the different options that we've looked at, I really recommend this to the board. I think it's a fairly decent price, and I think it's going to make a big difference in the amount of foot traffic, trespassers, bathroom users in that area.
Any comments from the board or any objections to approving this?
Move this to be approved.
All right, I will second that. Any objections? Without objection, approved. Okay, new business homeowner request holiday art supply drive. Betsy, could you introduce us?
Yeah, she just she emailed the Nepenthe HOA.com website or email address, and she is a homeowner here, and she is a supporter of this Broad Room, which is a really cool thing. They provide free art supplies to underserved artists in the community. And they also even provide places to make art, and their whole mission statement is that creativity is a necessity. So I think it's a very cool group, and we traditionally have always supported a charity during the holidays. Last year we supported the St. John's Housing for Women and Children, and that was really neat. We collected bedding and towels and things for them. The year before that we collected for Loaves and Fishes. And so they're just asking to have a bin here where people could drop off gently used or new art supplies for a period of a few weeks, November 1 through December 31.
Do we, I guess you have a resolution for us to approve to do that?
I didn't create, or I did, yeah, the board of directors permits Broad Room to set up a holiday donation drive in the Nepenthe Clubhouse between the dates of November.
Any comments or objections from the board? All right, without objection, that's approved. Okay, landscape proposal. This is the last formal agenda item. I'd like to ask our board liaison, Cheryl Nelson, to take the lead on this.
Thank you. I am Cheryl Nelson. Basically, I'd like to do a couple of things in discussing these proposals that have come from Landscape Committee. First, the Landscape Committee's charge is through charter, and they are driven by the grounds mission statement to look for things that need improvement and help within our landscaping throughout Nepenthe. They do that through zone walks, where we have stewards assigned to the various zones within Nepenthe. They walk those zones, and with the assistance of the chair, Betsy, and people from Carson, look at what's happening, try to spot where corrections are needed, where there are problems, where something is missing, something is a problem. We write those up and discuss them. They come in as work orders that go to Carson for proposals. So all of the work that the grounds committee does is to try to identify work that needs to be done in a non-judgmental way, as far as what's it going to cost, what's it going to be. They come to the board then with the recommendations. We're implementing 3 different things at this point, and I'd like to show how they function and help both the committee and the board and the people who live in Nepenthe. One, this has already been approved, and many of you who attended our last meeting know about it. We're taking the zones and breaking them into subzones. So each zone, for instance, zone 1 will have 4 subzones. Each of those will be assigned when they're going to do a zone walk, and it'll be on the webpage. So that if you want to know when the zone group is going to be outside your house, you will know and can meet them if you wish to talk about an issue. It's not to supplement or to negate the forms that you have. You can always come to the office and put in a request for something to be observed if you think it's been overlooked. But this is a way to make it clear when we're going to be there and to give you a chance to interact with the stewards and the people who are looking at work. The second thing, when in theory, we have approved a ranking system within the committee. I can't show you that right now because the committee has asked to take another look to fine tune it at our next meeting. But I'm going to talk to you about a couple of the proposals that are in the packet, and we'll show them up here to talk about how a ranking system can help everybody understand decisions that are being made. The first one, if you have a packet, it's on page 61, but this is a proposal that starts off in some ways. I don't know if Betsy, if you can bring that proposal up, it's on page 61.
Okay.
We went through, this is zone 1, and this is the area in this vicinity of the clubhouse. We started walking around, and if you look at the first work description on Adelphi Court, the third item talks about junipers by the tennis courts. We looked at those junipers and realized that the roots are extending underneath the tennis courts, at least to our view. We just refinished all the tennis courts. If we have juniper trees that ruin the tennis courts after we've just resurfaced them, then we have a problem potentially there. Within the ranking system we're talking about, and we've started ranking, there are about 5 categories. This is potential damage to structure or to create some kind of liability. So we'd say this is a top priority for us to spend money on to repair this. The other thing about that particular item is there's nothing there about what to do if we take them out. Because in effect, we don't know what the solution would be because we don't know all the issues for the tennis courts or for the people who use them. So that would come in a later proposal, someone saying, hey, you need to do this, this, or this. Other items that are on there, so that's would be a top priority. Our second category that we're talking about is something that will benefit Nepenthe by saving both water and future maintenance costs. That means that in the top item, again on that Adelphi Court, where we're talking about drainage, we've got drainage issues there. We need to solve that problem. But we also are talking about removing ivy, grinding the stumps, removing some grass. We're talking down on the walkway between Adelphi Court, which is out here. We're talking about changing the irrigation in that area, removing plants that are old that need a lot of pruning and maintenance work. So the items that are on this, our committee, when we went through it, ranked them the top and the second category for priorities to inform the board to help them make decisions. The board has a choice: approve it, not approve it, ask for separation of items, ask for negotiation if we need it, but it is now in the board's hands to make decisions about the money and about whether or not to do the work. The second one that I want to turn to is right behind it, and it has to do with something that's really important to all of us. One of the charges for outreach is to pay attention to appearance, make things look nice when we make decisions. This was a discussion as we left the clubhouse. The center planter out there doesn't have any color in it. It would be nice to have people pull up and see colorful flowers, have a very pleasant appearance there. This is proposed because again, it's a possibility to make enhancements to Nepenthe if the board chooses. The committee put this as our lowest priority because it doesn't solve a water problem, doesn't solve a maintenance problem, doesn't prevent damage, but it still could be important to Nepenthe and should be considered for work. The last one I want to pull, there are several in here. Most of the others, they're in this category. If you wanted to read them all, are in the category 2 and 3, where there's some irrigation benefit, some maintenance benefit. But the very last one, so if there are any questions about this ranking, let me know as we go too. But the very last one is on university. And this is an example of the third thing we'd like to do, and that's prepare a type of suspense file. This is an area where a tree was pulled out a couple of years ago, but nothing's ever been done to replace in that area. Why? Who knows? Whatever, but it needs to be done. We have a plan. If we're pulling a tree, we need to remediate it. We need to fix the area where we pull out a tree. Some things can fall through the cracks. So what we would like to do is start a project, and I can't give you definitives because we're still working on even the idea. But if the board decides, hey, we aren't going to spend the money on this plan right now, this proposal, we're just not going to do it right now, they will defer it and it will go into a suspense file where on a regular basis, those we come back to and look at and consider, are we now ready to do it? The idea being that the board needs to know everything that needs to be done, or they have no way really to make decisions or to plan budgets. We need to know what's out there, what's lurking, and make decisions from that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Very complete. Any of the directors have comments on this item?
Well, I do have. I have a comment, question. I have a question, Cheryl. You mentioned the junipers to be removed there along the fence.
Yes.
And you said there are no plans. I'm trying to find, okay. There are no plans at this point for remediation, correct?
Not at this point, no.
So when I'm looking at this proposal here, it says equipment use, oh no, here, total materials, $17,120. So why are we having in that proposal material if we don't have any?
That's
just a question.
That's not for the juniper item.
Yeah, this is a composite work order. One of the other things that's important to know about work orders when they're done is that there is, like for any business, a benefit for economy of scale. We could break this into 2 or 3 sections, but then Carson needs to come out each time and there's a higher rate for them to do that. We looked at this area. If we did one house, but then the next one, why didn't they get the same treatment? Why wasn't this done? So we looked at the entire area. Carson then bids it by the total project. If the second item on here, the walkway between on Adelphi Court, you'll notice they're taking out 83 shrubs. Those shrubs need to have something replace them. And so it's not the junipers that there's replacement material for. It's a shrubbery. It's the materials, the shrubs, the rest of it that are coming in have to do with the other houses that front on the green belt. There's, I'm talking with my hands, not everybody can see it. There's the tennis court, there's a green belt, a walkway, and then we have residences.
Correct. But one point of clarification, Cheryl, if you don't mind, there is a plan where the junipers are to just put Berry Creek Rock around the
For right now,
you know,
yes.
the part facing Swarthmore and looping around where those would be removed. It just kind of a clean, neat appearance. But if later plantings were wanted, then it could.
So that means we would remove the junipers, but not plant anything there at that point until we figure out what to do.
Well, there are several reasons for that. Since this work order has come up, there have been comments made, and again, the grounds committee is looking at the grounds themselves and what they see. There needs to be input for these work orders as it goes through the process. It's been pointed out that those junipers provide shade and that it's a nice thing to have that for the tennis court. At some point, we need to make a decision. Well, how do we provide that shade? Do we leave the junipers there and assume they're not going to cause a problem with the tennis court? Do we say, oh, well, let's plant junipers, but let's plant them 6 feet back from the tennis court? Do we decide to put in benches with umbrellas so that there's shade there? There's a whole bunch of potential for solving the problem of shade, but it's not a grounds committee issue to solve the problem of shade.
Well, I just,
Actually, are you commenting on the junipers?
no.
Can I?
Okay, go ahead.
Since we're on that
Yeah,
item.
yeah, sure.
I'm not a pickleball player, but we have a lot of them. And I don't know how long those junipers have been there, but I've been there a long time. And they provide a tremendous amount of shade, particularly in the morning. I'm relatively certain that the pickleball players are going to go into orbit if we take those out. Yeah, I will tell you that I inspected that area before our executive meeting today. There's one small area that appears to have a crack that looks like it's about 3 inches long. It's clearly been there since we redid the courts. I mean, since before we redid the courts. So I certainly, speaking for myself as a board member, I would not be in favor of removing those.
Just a comment. I think we're nearly 200,000 over what we allocated for this year, and this doesn't in landscaping, and this isn't going to include, fallen trees or storm cleanup. So, but still, I mean, maybe I would look at something like this for next year toward the end of the year when I know that we have money left, but still, I would expect a lot more detail and the way this bid's written up. So design fee, what would that, there's a lot of charges and there's a lack of detail. I don't know how many plants are going to be planting. I mean, even if they were to say something like plant 50 1-gallon shrubs, 20, there's just nothing here for me to get an idea of what I'm getting my money for. So I just can't. I'm hoping to see better proposals in the future, I guess is my point.
Okay. Jackie, any comment? I guess my overall feeling about this, and really following up on what Ashley just said, if we've got something in this package that just absolutely needs to be done, we probably should do it. I think some of these other ones, given the situation of our allocation in the grounds, we ought to put a lot of these off. That's my feeling.
If we're going to choose, I would say that the ones that in zone 7, the remediation for the tree that's gone, it is an essential one to do simply because of the length of time those people have waited for that to be remediated.
How long has that been?
Well, we went back and I think that the tree was damaged in a storm in 2020, but Linda Dixon is here. She's the homeowner right next to that. Would you say that's about right? 2020, Linda, that tree failed? Yeah. So and as you can see from the photo, it's a pretty sad looking area. This is where the tree was. It's now just suckers and this is just dirt.
Lots of sad areas.
Cheryl, any other that you just absolutely think we need to do?
Maybe make a motion.
What
I think
what
that-
about the one in the back on 1066 Vanderbilt, that tree removal?
What page are you on, Marcus? Which page are you on?
16.
Well, that's the grounds committee minutes. So
Betsy,
yes.
I don't believe that actually came onto the board bracket. That was an amount for about, I believe, $355, the proposal.
Oh, yeah,
And it
that was already
thrown-
authorized.
Yeah, and that didn't make it to the board packet, but it was a small amount and it was a dead tree outside 1066. So,
Right, because it was such a small amount.
Yeah, and it-
Cheryl and Christina and I authorized it.
yes, so it was a small amount, so.
Any other comments from board members? Would you like to come up and introduce yourself and use the microphone? It's your tree, right? Well, it's our tree, but it impacts you. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
My name is Linda Dixon, and I'm the homeowner in Zone 7 next to where that tree was taken down. And I just want to elaborate a little bit because I think elaboration will go to the next problem that is like the one we're experiencing. The tree provided a lot of shade, and because it wasn't replaced, we're losing all of those plants. Not only is it look like a war zone, but we're losing beautiful plants as a result. There's a gorgeous rhododendron there that's been burned pretty badly. And the association recently put in, I think, 2 other rhododendrons that have died because of this problem. So it's not only the current day problem, but it looks to the future. If it's not taken care of, it only gets worse.
Great. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If there's no other comments from board members, I would like to move that we only approve this particular item at 1563 University Avenue and withhold approval on the others.
I move that we not approve any of them. Or I don't know the order. Okay.
Ashley, I've already made a motion. May I have a
I'll
2nd?
second it.
All right.
Your motion.
That's you call roll.
Okay, Baker.
Aye.
And Dasher. Nelson. Gravitas. Tangeras.
Okay. All right. So we will proceed with one and not the others.
Are we done?
Second homeowner.
All right. That's the formal agenda. Anyone which to speak at the second homeowner forum?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. This is Christina.
Sure.
So, since we do a lot of these zone walks every week, and does the board now, would the board prefer that we sort of defer from these zone walks until you get a sort of a feeling as to whether we should proceed? Because every time we come back from a zone walk, we'll have work orders and proposals. And so since we've got quite a number of proposals here, there's quite a lot of work that the zone stewards go through to
Christina.
before, yeah.
No, we do not want you guys to stop. So first of all, I want to say we greatly appreciate the grounds committee and what they have been doing. Those reports are excellent. And I think we have a way better understanding than we've ever had with those reports that we've been getting from you guys. And just because we did not approve that does not mean it's not going to happen. We want to, in some instances, we want to have maybe more clarification, and not necessarily just from you guys, but also from Carson. And at this point, it's more of tabling it, but we want to continue getting proposals and maybe start, having a different plan or an approach for next year. to stay within, maybe more within budget than we have been this year.
So are you saying that are you tabling all these proposals to 2023? Is that the plan, or?
Tabling them for the future.
Okay,
Can
because
we-
obviously, clearly the prices will change, I'm assuming, also down the line. So you're saying go ahead with the zone walks, continue with proposals and to send to the board for approval. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Let Cheryl address that.
I want to just clarify, John and the others, we've been using the word table, but I think what we really mean is defer. And the idea is that if we don't approve, if we defer something, that doesn't mean it goes away. That means that if next month we end up with more that are really high priority, that doesn't mean they're not going to be done, but each one will be measured on its own value as to whether or not we spend money, even if we're over our planned allocation. I mean, we planned within our study to use X amount of money for landscape. If we need to spend more, we will spend more if we have to. But we will look at each one and we will defer if we think we can put this off and use the money for something that's higher priority.
So but the priority that we're doing right now is based on like the one that you introduced and which we're going to be discussing this month at the grounds meeting. We've already sort of said, okay, ranking 1, which is, structural damage, or 2 is, reducing maintenance or water use. But it seems none of those actually have been approved. So I'm trying to figure out what would you approve based on this? I mean, emergency or just some guidance is what I'm trying to get so that.
Yeah, I think, sorry, an emergency situation is one thing. So, but I think I'm going to put together a spreadsheet, like a way to track these items that need to be addressed, and we can track the ranking. We can come up with a system, I think, that still identifies that there's a problem and we want to look at it in the future. But I think we can streamline this to be a lot less work, for Betsy and Nirmal to enter the work orders. Maybe we wait till we get a proposal. I understand the prices are going to change, but I think we can maybe streamline this a lot. And hopefully, we'll get a good idea of what problems exist, because that's important. I think all of us board members want to know that. But anyway, I'm going to be sending something to the board members and maybe you, and get feedback and just see if it's something that might save you guys time.
Christina, let me tie a bow around this.
Yeah.
And Marcus really is speaking for the rest of us as well. We want you to continue with these walks, continue providing us ideas for things that need to be done. You will continue to provide ranking with Cheryl. If we decide not to do something, it probably will be a deferral unless it's something that just is crazy. And as Ashley's speaking, we don't want to lose track of these. So we're going to keep track of them and be able to revisit individual ones if we have to. So keep up your work. Keep telling us. Just because the committee recommends them, as you know, doesn't mean we're going to approve them.
No, I understand. I was just looking for clarification as far as I didn't want to put pressure on the board by keeping on sending in proposals necessarily, since we're already, this is about $180,000 here.
We may have items that you think need to be done, and we may disagree and not even ask for a proposal. Okay.
What do you mean not ask for a proposal?
Well,
We may ask for things from the committee that the committee doesn't bring to us, such as something, I think that's what John is referring to. You guys are the ones that ask for the proposals from your
Yes.
walks. So you will continue to ask for proposals. If we find that, hey, there's trending somewhere strange, we might say, hey, don't give us any more of this kind. But at this
Okay.
point, that is not what's happening.
Okay, that's fine. Good. Okay, clear.
Thanks, Christina. Will Vizard, you have your hand raised. Sir, would you like to speak?
Yes, you received a proposed alternate budget tonight in several copies. I think it would be prudent to provide a copy of that to the Finance Committee so that the members can look over what those proposals are.
Excellent idea. Can we do that? Susan, are you still on? No, okay. Is Susan
Yeah,
still-
I'm
Yeah,
here.
there.
Sorry.
Okay. Betsy, can you make sure Susan gets that?
I will.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Will, for bringing that up.
Okay.
In addition, if it's not, and I don't want to put another burden on Betsy because she's got a lot of burdens already. If there's some, if it's possible to mark those that are significant changes from the existing budget so that we can focus on those, it would be most helpful. But if there isn't time, well, we can do it ourselves.
Of course, I will.
Yeah, that would be easy to do. Yeah. Okay. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Good comment. Yes, Jerry. Microphone, please.
Back to the subject of flood insurance. If the board is going to go forward with the flood insurance, can you hear it? Go forward with the flood insurance. We still have 2.5 months before the policy is renewed, December 14th. Can I ask that you at least look at a higher deductible, like Ricardo said, instead of 2,000, because if you're worried about a catastrophic loss.
I think we've already asked Bruce to do that, haven't we, Betsy? Yeah, we have.
Yeah, and that might save you some money.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Good point.
That
Yeah,
was it.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
There's one behind you.
Okay, I would like to maybe invite Tina Keel to next month's meeting to present the flood renewal. What does the board think of that?
To the next board meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to make a approval. We have to approve a budget next time. Isn't that a little bit late?
Well, I
Let's-
mean,
Well, let's strategize that with Jerry.
right.
Thank you. Don Elwinger, 1221 Vanderbilt. I'd like to address the landscape situation and our budget. It appears to me, and being in farming my whole life and looking at these change orders and these proposals, and I realize we worked with Carson or we worked with GP or we worked with Coast or whoever, but it appears to me that these change orders are grossly overinflated. Right? The proposal, work orders, and looking at some of them, and I realize we're working with them. It's not a good idea to put them out to get separate bids, et cetera. But I think that's where we ought to address one of the problems. Some of these change orders or work orders, proposals are necessary, but the costs, as I've seen them, if we were writing checks out of our own pocket, I'm afraid I'd have to get a couple other bids.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Just like the janitorial.
Ricardo, did you have another comment?
I'm not talking about flood insurance, but something about FEMA, just so everybody knows, without flood insurance, the standard FEMA help that FEMA provides people outside of separate acts of Congress is $75,000 per homeowner. I'm not going to speak about renters. It's a little bit more confusing. They get $37,500 to try to rebuild their structure, to make it livable. I don't know how far that will go in Florida, and $37,500 to replace lost belongings. So if people think that FEMA will bail you out if you don't have flood insurance, that's not going to happen. Congress can pass supplemental bills like they did in New Orleans and they did it in Superstorm Sandy in the Northeast. And the Small Business Administration provides low interest loans if you qualify for that. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that FEMA doesn't have a deep pockets to rebuild your home after a flood. They say,
Thank
"By
you,
the flood."
Ricardo. Yeah, good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else?
Just start talking.
Okay.
I think Jim Shaw would like to speak.
Thank you, Betsy. Just a very, very quick question and for clarification. We were under the impression after listening to the last insurance committee meeting that there would be an opportunity before a formal decision regarding flood insurance for homeowners to input. Is that still on track? John mentioned that you're going to go to formal budget approval next board meeting, which pretty much precludes homeowner input regarding the flood insurance policy component.
Jim, perhaps you weren't on early when we talked about this at the very beginning. We are planning on having a flood insurance meeting, but after the first of the year. Right now, the board is pretty clear that dropping flood insurance through the association is a major decision, a huge policy decision that none of us are prepared to make quickly. It needs a lot more evaluation, a lot more input.
Thank you, John. If, as I understand your comment, then the formal decision from the board will be done sometime after the first of the year.
That's correct.
And so the plan is to renew this year.
Yes, this plan is to renew for this year. Well,
Thank you
for-
so much.
For 23, sure. Thank you,
Gotcha.
Jim. Thanks for the clarification. All right. Anyone else? We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.